7 years ago, I truly believed my life was about to begin in the best way. I had been saving $3,200 in a small box, counting every note twice, because I wanted to propose to Evan in London. I pictured it so clearly. An evening walk, soft lights on the water, and his surprised smile when I opened my hand and asked him to stay with me forever. My sister Mara was always around, always laughing too loud, always acting like nothing was serious. At first I told myself she was just being friendly, because that's what sisters do, right? But there were little things that started to feel wrong, like her hand resting on his arm for too long, or the way he looked at her when he thought I wasn't watching. One day I came home early and the house felt strangely quiet. I walked toward the kitchen and saw them standing too close, like my place had been erased without anyone asking me. Evan tried to speak, but his face was already guilty. Mara didn't even look sorry. She looked pleased. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just walked out, holding my breath, and I knew something inside me had snapped for good. Time didn't heal me the way people like to promise. It didn't gently stitch the wound and leave behind a neat little scar. Time just moved on, and I had to move with it, even when my heart didn't feel ready. After that day in the kitchen, I left the part of London that held too many memories and I built a new routine that didn't include family dinners or surprise visits. I told myself I was doing it for peace, but really I was doing it because I couldn't stand the idea of sitting across from Mara at a table while she acted like nothing had happened. I tried to be fine in the way people expect you to be fine, smiling at work, answering messages, going out with friends. But every time my phone buzzed, I felt that old fear, like the next notification might be another picture of them together. And sometimes it was. Mara loved posting little moments like trophies. A coffee cup with 2 names written on it. A blurry photo of Evan laughing. A caption that sounded innocent but felt like a knife if you knew the truth. I stopped looking, but even when I didn't see it, I could still imagine it. Evan tried to contact me for a while. First it was long messages that started with, "Please let me explain," and ended with, "I never wanted to hurt you." Then it became short ones, like, "Can we talk?" or "I miss you." Each time I saw his name, I felt 2 feelings at once, anger because he chose the easy path, and sadness because I had once trusted him with the softest parts of myself. I never replied. I was scared that if I answered even one time, I would fall back into the old version of me, the version that believed love could survive anything, even betrayal. My father called me the week after I moved away. His voice was tired in a way I hadn't heard before, like he had already decided what he wanted to believe. He said, "You know your sister makes mistakes, but she's still your sister." Then he added the sentence that made my jaw tighten, "Be the bigger person." I remember staring at the wall while he spoke, listening to him choose peace over truth. I wanted to yell, "Why do I always have to be big? Why can't she be better?" But I didn't. I swallowed it, because arguing with him felt like punching fog. Nothing would change. That became the pattern for years. Mara acted like a winner, Evan stayed close to her, and my father tried to keep everyone in one picture. I showed up less and less. When I did visit, I kept my smile small and my words polite. I spoke about safe topics, work, weather, traffic, anything that didn't touch the real pain. Mara would look at me with that bright, clean expression that said, "See? We can all be normal." Evan would avoid my eyes, like guilt was heavy and he didn't want to carry it in public. I started traveling through Europe for work, not because I loved airports, but because movement made me feel like I had control. I'd step into a new city, learn the streets, find a little place to eat, and pretend I was someone with no past. In those places, no one knew Mara's name. No one knew Evan's smile. No one looked at me like I was the girl who got left behind. I could just be a woman ordering tea, reading a book, walking alone without feeling watched. I grew stronger in quiet ways. I learned how to fix things myself, how to handle problems without calling anyone to rescue me. I learned that loneliness and freedom can feel similar, depending on the day. Some nights I missed having someone in the next room, someone who knew my favorite movie and the way I liked my food. Other nights I loved the silence so much it felt like a gift. Then the call came about my father. It was early, and the light in my room looked cold. My phone rang, and something in my body knew before my mind did. It was my aunt's voice, shaky, careful, like she was walking across thin ice. She said my father was gone. She said it was sudden. She said she was sorry. And in that moment, the world didn't spin or crash the way you expect in movies. It just stopped. Like all the air had been pulled out and no one told me how to breathe again. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my hands. I thought about my father's laugh when he was in a good mood. I thought about how he used to bring home small treats and act like it was no big deal. I thought about the way he could be kind and unfair at the same time. Grief is strange like that. It doesn't come with one clean emotion. It comes with a messy pile of love, anger, regret, and things you didn't say. I booked my flight to London with shaking fingers. The ticket cost $780, and I paid it without thinking, because what else was I supposed to do? Even after everything, he was my father. I wasn't going to let distance be the reason I didn't say goodbye. When I arrived, the air in London felt heavier than I remembered. The sky looked like it had been rubbed with grey chalk. The streets were the same, but I wasn't. Every corner held a memory I didn't ask for. The taxi ride felt too quiet, like the city was waiting for me to break. The day of the funeral, I stood in front of a mirror and didn't recognize my own face for a second. Not because I looked different, but because my expression was so controlled. My eyes were dry. My mouth was firm. I looked like someone attending a serious meeting, not burying a parent. I wondered if that made me cold. Then I remembered how many times I had cried alone over the years, and I decided I didn't owe anyone a performance of pain. The funeral hall smelled like old flowers and polished wood. People spoke softly, the way they do when they want to seem respectful. I heard my name a few times, followed by the same sad words. I'm sorry. He was a good man. How are you holding up? I answered with small nods, because long answers felt impossible. Mara was near the front, dressed perfectly, hair neat, makeup flawless. She looked like she had prepared for cameras. When she saw me, her expression shifted into something friendly and bright, like she was greeting me at a party. She stepped toward me and said, "I'm glad you came." Her voice was sweet, but it didn't reach her eyes. I could feel old anger rising, but I pressed it down. This wasn't the place. This day wasn't about her. I took my seat and stared at the closed casket, trying to understand that my father was really inside it. A wave of memory hit me, his hands, his voice, the way he used to say my name when he wanted my attention. My throat tightened, and I forced myself to breathe slowly so I wouldn't make a sound. I didn't want drama. I didn't want old fights. I wanted one quiet moment to say goodbye in my head. But life doesn't always respect what you want. The doors opened behind me, and I felt it before I saw it. The shift in the room, the way people turned their heads, the small murmur that spread like a ripple. I didn't move right away. I didn't want to look. I already knew. Evan walked in holding Mara's hand. He looked older, but not softer. His suit fit him well, and his smile had a sharp edge now, like confidence had replaced kindness. Mara's hand was wrapped around his like a claim. They paused just inside the doorway, letting the room notice them, like they were arriving to be seen. My stomach went tight, but my face stayed calm. I watched them from the corner of my eye as they moved closer. Evan glanced at me, and instead of guilt, I saw something worse, pride. Like he was proud of what he took, proud of the story he rewrote. He leaned slightly toward me as he passed, and his voice was loud enough for a few people nearby to hear. Some guys just finish first. For 1 second, the old me rose up inside my chest, the girl who wanted to cry, who wanted to ask why, who wanted to beg the universe to undo everything. But that girl didn't live here anymore. I let the silence sit for a breath. Then I turned my head slowly, looked him right in the eyes, and I let a small smirk form. I said, "You still working that office job?" His smile twitched. Mara's fingers tightened on his hand. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't expected at my father's funeral. Not victory. Not revenge. Just a calm, quiet certainty that I wasn't the person they left behind anymore. The silence after my line felt thick, like the room had swallowed a stone. A few people pretended they hadn't heard. Others stared at the floor like it suddenly became very interesting. Evan's mouth opened slightly, then closed again, as if he wasn't sure which version of himself to use, the smooth one that charms, or the bitter one that bites. Mara kept her face calm, but I saw the small tension around her eyes. She didn't like moments she couldn't control. I didn't look away first. I let my smirk fade into something neutral, almost bored. It wasn't an act. It was the truth. I was tired of giving them the power to pull big reactions out of me. I had learned that when someone tries to provoke you, they are really begging for proof that they still matter. I wasn't going to feed that hunger, not here, not today. Evan shifted his shoulders, trying to recover his pride. Still got jokes, he muttered, low enough to sound casual, but not low enough to be private. His eyes flicked over my coat and shoes like he was searching for something to mock. Mara's hand stayed wrapped around his, but her grip looked more like a warning than affection. Like she was telling him, don't mess this up. Before he could add another comment, the soft hum of an engine rolled in from outside. It wasn't loud, but it was smooth, steady, and different from the usual sounds on that street. It made people pause without knowing why. Even I turned my head a little, because something about it felt intentional. Then I saw it through the glass near the entrance, a long black limo sliding into view, polished enough to catch the gray light. It stopped with quiet precision, the way expensive things often do. The driver stepped out, walked around, and opened the back door without rushing. A few heads turned fully now. Funerals in London are usually modest. A limo doesn't blend in. It announces itself, even when it tries not to. My heart didn't race, not the way it would have years ago. Instead, I felt a calm click inside me, like a door closing gently. Because I knew, the man who stepped out was my husband. Nathan didn't look around for attention. He didn't scan the crowd to check if people were watching. He simply adjusted his jacket, thanked the driver with a small nod, and walked forward with the kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly who you are. His suit was dark, clean, perfectly fitted, but it wasn't the clothes that made him look powerful. It was his posture, his stillness. The way he moved like the world didn't get to push him around. When he entered the hall, the air changed again. People noticed him the way they notice a sudden drop in temperature. Nathan's eyes found me immediately. Not in a searching way, but in a sure way, like he always knew where I was. The moment his gaze met mine, my chest loosened. I hadn't realized how tight I'd been holding myself until that second. He walked straight to me, and the space between us felt like a path that had been waiting for him. I stood as he reached my row. He offered his hand, and I took it. His fingers were warm and steady. He leaned in and asked quietly, "Are you okay?" I nodded, because with him there, I truly was. Behind me, I heard Evan breathe out a sharp laugh, the kind that isn't funny but wants to sound like it is. "Well," he said, lifting his chin, "look who decided to show up with an audience." Nathan didn't respond right away. He didn't even look at Evan at first. That alone made Evan's expression flicker. Evan was used to being noticed. Used to being the center of things. Being ignored hit him harder than being challenged. Mara's eyes moved over Nathan like she was doing quick math. Watch. Shoes. The cut of his suit. The limo outside. Her gaze sharpened with interest, and for a moment her lips curved like she was about to play one of her old games. She stepped slightly forward, still holding Evan's hand, and spoke in a soft voice meant to sound polite. "Hello," she said, smiling. "I'm Mara." Nathan finally turned his head, and in that instant, his face changed. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't gasp or step back. It was smaller than that, but clearer. His eyes narrowed just slightly, like he had seen a photo he didn't expect to see in real life. His jaw tightened once. His grip on my hand stayed gentle, but I felt the tension run through his fingers like a quiet warning. Mara's smile faltered for less than a second. Most people wouldn't have caught it. I did, because I knew her. That tiny slip meant she recognized something too, even if she didn't want to admit it. Nathan spoke her name like it was already written somewhere in his memory. Mara. The way he said it didn't sound friendly. It sounded certain. Evan looked between them, confused. "You two know each other?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light, but failing. Mara laughed quickly. Too quickly. "No," she said. "I mean, I don't think so." Nathan didn't smile back. "You do," he said, calm as ever. "And I do." Mara's eyes widened a fraction, then she recovered, lifting her chin. "I meet a lot of people," she said, making her voice sweet again. "Maybe you're mistaken." Nathan's gaze didn't move. "I'm not," he replied. The room around us felt like it was leaning in. Even the people who wanted to avoid drama couldn't help it. They sensed something. A history. A crack in the story Mara had been telling for years. Evan tried to take control. He squeezed Mara's hand and stepped half a step closer to Nathan, as if being physical would make him brave. "Listen," Evan said, forcing a smile. "This isn't the time. We're here for your father." That word, your, hit me wrong. Like he was borrowing my family for comfort. I held Nathan's hand tighter, Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to stay grounded. Nathan glanced at me again, quick and steady, checking in without making a show of it. Then he looked back at Mara. Mara's expression shifted. She looked at Nathan's face again, closer now, and I watched her try to place him. I saw it happen in stages. First curiosity, then doubt, then a faint tension, then recognition that she tried to hide. Her fingers loosened around Evan's hand. Just a little. That tiny movement told me everything. Evan didn't notice at first. He was still busy trying to keep his pride upright. He looked at me and gave a short, sharp smile. "So," he said, "you married someone important, huh?" I didn't answer him the way he wanted. I didn't defend Nathan. I didn't list achievements. I didn't brag. I just looked at Evan like he was a tired joke and said, "I married someone who shows up." Nathan's face softened at that. Not into a smile, but into something warm. Then he spoke again, and this time his voice carried enough to reach the closest ears. "Mara," he said, "you didn't just take things from my wife." Mara's smile froze. Evan's eyebrows lifted. Nathan continued, calm and sharp, "You took things from me too." The words landed like a plate set down too hard. Mara tried to laugh, but it sounded thin. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she said, and her voice finally showed a crack. "This is ridiculous." Nathan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," he said. "And I'm not here to argue. I'm here for her. But if you're going to stand in this room and act like you've never hurt anyone, then you're lying." Evan's grip tightened on Mara's hand again, but she didn't lean into him now. She leaned away, like she suddenly felt unsure about the man she'd been holding on to. And that was the moment I understood something new. Mara didn't just steal love. She stole safety. She stole stories. She stole the parts of people that made them soft, then acted shocked when they stopped trusting the world. Nathan's eyes stayed on her. "Are you going to keep pretending?" he asked quietly. Mara's throat moved like she swallowed something bitter. She glanced around at the watching faces, and I saw her panic for the first time. Not because she felt sorry, but because she knew she was losing control of the room. Evan finally sensed it too. He looked at Mara, then at Nathan, then at me. His smile had fully died now. His voice dropped. "What is this?" he demanded. "What did she do?" Nathan didn't answer Evan right away. He turned to me instead and said, softly, "Do you want me to stop?" That question, right there, was everything Evan never gave me. Choice. Respect. Care. I lifted my chin and said, "No." And in the quiet that followed, I felt the next truth coming, heavy, unavoidable, like a door about to swing open. Nathan's question, "Do you want me to stop?" was so gentle that it made my throat tighten. He wasn't trying to win a fight or prove a point. He was protecting me, even in a room full of strangers and half-known faces. I looked at him and gave the smallest shake of my head. "No," I said. My voice was steady, and that surprised even me. "Don't stop." For a moment, no one spoke. The funeral hall felt like it was holding its breath. I could hear the faint shuffle of shoes, the soft hum of the lights, and someone's quiet sniffle somewhere behind me. Evan's face had changed from pride to confusion to irritation, like he was climbing down a ladder he didn't want to leave. Mara stood stiff, her posture still perfect, but her eyes were moving too fast. She was scanning the room, reading the audience, calculating how to twist this back into her favor. Nathan turned toward her fully. He didn't step closer. He didn't threaten. He simply stood in place, calm as stone, and spoke in a voice that carried just enough for the nearby people to hear. "You ruined my career once," he said. "Not because you needed to. Not because you were desperate. Because you enjoyed the power." Mara let out a short laugh that sounded more like a cough. "That's insane," she said. "I don't even know you." Nathan didn't blink. "You do," he replied. 7 years ago, you worked at that firm for a few months. You told people I stole your idea. You cried in the office kitchen. You made it look real. They believed you because you were good at acting small and hurt." Evan's eyes widened. He turned to Mara as if waiting for her to deny it properly, with details, with proof. But Mara's mouth opened and closed. Her face did something strange, like the mask was slipping and she couldn't catch it in time. "That's not," Mara started, then stopped, because she didn't know which lie to use. Nathan continued, steady and clear. "I lost my job. Not because I wasn't good at it. Because people believed your story. I spent 2 years rebuilding my name. 2 years explaining myself without sounding angry, because anger makes people doubt you. The room felt colder. A few people were openly staring now. I saw my aunt's eyes move between Mara and Nathan. I saw someone whisper something to another person and then stop, realizing how loud whispers can be in a quiet room. Mara's cheeks tightened. "Why are you bringing this up here?" she snapped, and the sweetness in her voice was gone now. That was the real Mara, sharp, annoyed, offended that anyone would expose her in front of witnesses. Nathan's voice stayed calm. "I didn't come here to bring it up," he said. "I came here to support my wife." "You brought it up when you walked in holding his hand like this was a game you already won." Evan flinched at "my wife," like it hit a sore spot. He straightened his shoulders and tried to sound confident again. "So what?" he said. "You're her husband. Congratulations. This doesn't change anything." I finally spoke, my voice quiet but firm. "It changes everything," I said. "Because for years I was made to feel like I imagined it. Like I was overreacting. Like I was supposed to smile and move on while you two acted proud." Evan looked at me like he couldn't believe I was talking back. "You're still stuck on that," he said, almost laughing. "It was 7 years ago." I stared at him. "And you're still the same," I replied. "That's the point." Mara's fingers twitched at her side, restless. She hated losing the spotlight. She hated the room leaning away from her instead of toward her. She took a step forward, putting on her familiar expression, the one that usually made people soften. "Look," she said, voice suddenly gentle again. "I'm sorry if anyone misunderstood things back then. But this is our father's funeral. Can we not do this?" The way she said "our father" sounded like she was trying to wrap herself in the word like a shield. I felt anger rise, but it was a clean anger now, not wild. "Don't use him to save yourself," I said. "You didn't care about hurting me when he was alive. You don't get to use grief as a costume." Evan's face tightened. "Watch your mouth," he snapped, then immediately glanced around as if realizing how bad that sounded in this room. Nathan didn't move, but his presence filled the space. "You don't get to tell her how to speak," he said to Evan, voice quiet and flat. "Not after what you did." Evan turned red. "What I did," he repeated. "She left. She walked away." I shook my head slowly. "No," I said. "You made your choice, and I walked away from your choice. There's a difference." For a second, Evan looked like he wanted to argue more, but then he glanced at Mara again. And something about her face made him pause. Because Mara wasn't holding his hand with pride anymore. She was looking at the door, like she wanted escape. Nathan looked at Mara one more time. "And the money," he added, almost like an afterthought. "You never paid it back, $8,000. You promised you would. You cried and said your life was falling apart. Then you vanished the next week and told people I was unstable." Mara's lips parted. A small sound came out, like a breath that had nowhere to go. Evan's head snapped toward her. "Money?" he asked, sharp. "What money?" Mara's eyes flicked to him, then away. "It's nothing," she muttered. "It's old." Evan stepped closer to her. "What did you do?" he demanded, and now his voice had that hard edge of panic. "Tell me." Mara's shoulders lifted. She tried to pull herself up into confidence. "I didn't do anything," she said. "He's lying. They are trying to embarrass us." But her voice wasn't strong enough. "Not anymore." Evan stared at her, and I watched the truth drop into him piece by piece. His grip loosened. Then, slowly, he let go of her hand. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a big gesture. It was just a release, like his body finally realized it didn't want to hold on to her anymore. Mara blinked, surprised. The winner didn't like being dropped. She reached for his hand again, fast. "Evan," she said, softer, careful. "Don't do this. Not now." Evan pulled his hand back, staring at her like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. "How many times have you done this?" he asked. "How many people have you used?" Mara's eyes flashed with anger. "Oh, don't act like you're innocent," she hissed. "You liked it when you thought I was a prize." That landed hard. People shifted uncomfortably. Someone cleared their throat. My aunt's face went pale. The funeral director looked like he wanted to disappear. Mara took a breath, realizing she'd said too much. She glanced around again, searching for allies, but the room was quiet in a way that didn't support her. Quiet, but not kind. Then she grabbed her coat and walked toward the door, her steps fast and sharp. At the entrance she paused, like she expected someone to stop her, to beg her to stay, to soothe her like always. No one did. Evan hesitated, his face torn between pride and humiliation. For a second, he looked at me, really looked, like he wanted to say something that would fix his image. But there was nothing left to say. He followed her out anyway, because even when people know someone is wrong, they sometimes follow out of habit. Sometimes they follow because they don't know who they are without the person they chose. The doors closed behind them, and the room breathed again. I stood still, holding Nathan's hand, and felt grief settle back into place, heavy, real, and quiet. It didn't disappear because Mara left. My father was still gone. The day was still sad. But the air felt clearer, like a window had finally been opened after years in a closed room. Nathan leaned in slightly. "Do you want to step outside?" he asked. I nodded. We walked out together into the cold London air. The sky was pale, the street damp, and the wind sharp enough to sting. But I welcomed it. It felt honest. We stood near the limo, not rushing, not pretending. Nathan didn't tell me how to feel. He didn't try to turn this into a victory speech. He just stayed beside me, warm and solid. I looked up at the gray sky and whispered, "I wish my father had seen the truth." Nathan squeezed my hand once. "Maybe he did," he said gently. "Maybe he just didn't know how to face it." I swallowed hard. Tears finally came, quiet and slow, not for Evan, not for Mara, but for the years I spent carrying pain alone. And as I cried, I realized something simple. They didn't take my life. They took a moment. I wrote the rest of the story myself.